Oz, it's Jen. Welcome back to Reframing Me. I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Brubaker. If you have been here for a minute, you know that we are deep into March Matrenaissance, a movement, a mindset shift, a transformation that every woman in midlife needs to hear. Matrenaissance is about more than just navigating an empty nest or adjusting to menopause or midlife changes. It's about rediscovering who we are, reclaiming our power, stepping into the most authentic, most fulfilled version of ourselves. It's about recognizing that midlife isn't the beginning of the end. It's the start of something bigger, something even more powerful. And today, I am so excited to bring you a conversation that I had with a woman who embodies this transformation. Emily Allen is a certified alcohol-free life coach. She helps women break free from the wine mom culture as they transition into their empty nest years. After transforming her own relationship with alcohol while raising her two children, she now guides other women to create an exciting next chapter of their lives that's filled with clarity, authentic connections, and true freedom. Emily's journey is a perfect example of Matrenaissance in action. She's a woman who recognized that the narrative that she had been living, it wasn't serving her anymore. And so she changed the way that she spoke to herself. She stepped into her own power. And now she helps other women do the same. In our conversation, we talk about the role of interpersonal communication, how the way that we speak to ourselves shapes our ability to grow. We explore the fear and the resistance that can come from big life changes. And we talk about how Emily pushed through those moments of doubt. We talk about what happens to our relationships as we evolve. If you've ever questioned whether you're ready for a major change, if you've ever felt stuck in a role or a habit that just no longer serves you, or if you've ever wondered, what's next for me? This episode and this series is for you because, as Emily shows us, midlife isn't about fading into the background. It's about finally stepping into the life that you were meant to live. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited that you joined me today. I didn't mention this to you before, but you were actually the inspiration for this series of interviews.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I've been working on this whole theory and, for a number of months now. It just means so much to me because I know that I've lived this and I've gone through it and I've come out okay on the other side, So I have just had this in the back of my head that, all right, well, what am I going to do now as far as the podcast is concerned with this information? And I got a notification on Facebook for your Facebook page and follow your Facebook page or whatever. And it was like, when I saw that, I don't know, it just kind of clicked. And I'm like, oh, look at that. Emily is doing just this. And so it gave me the idea that I wanted to highlight women who have gone through this. And, everybody's journey is going to be slightly different and everybody's going to have different, trigger points that make it happen and different ways that they cope and get through it and different outcomes and what they're looking for. But there is an overall kind of theme for how it seems to work and how it seems to happen. And I think that first of all, my thought is if people don't know that others are going through this, you kind of just think that there's something wrong with you, that you think that, you're ungrateful or you're motivated or you're dissatisfied and there's no hope for you. And, I think that knowing that other women are going through this and then seeing women like you who did come through and did kind of come out a new I don't want to say improved because because I mean it's not. It's just a different version of you. It's like a version of you for the next part of your life and
Yeah.
this next moment that you're moving into. So seeing you and seeing that, so it's a good thing I got that little Facebook invitation
Oh, see,
because
that makes
it
me feel
really
good.
it really triggered it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like these are real people that I know and they're doing this. So I'm hoping that the idea of kind of showcasing you, and then I have two other friends. And it's funny because when I'm going through, who should I ask? Who else is doing? I mean, I kept coming up with women that I'm just like, there are so many wonderful women who are using this. And this is just in my circle who are going through this. So I tried, but you definitely had to be the first because
Oh,
you were the inspiration for the whole idea. So, all right.
thank you.
So let's talk about what made you recognize that you kind of needed to change your life. What were the biggest signs and influences? Was there like a specific moment that something really hit you that you needed to change to a new Emily?
Yeah. So I I was a nightly drinker. I mean, that's sort of like my story. And I didn't start out like that. I don't think anybody starts out like that. But as time progressed and I would just become more and more like that was just my routine, like 5 o'clock, cooking dinner, pour a glass of wine, and then probably another glass, maybe while I'm still making dinner, another one with dinner. And then it just progressed to where then I would stay in the kitchen after dinner and continue to drink. And I'm like, what am I doing? First, could like categorize it as social drinker because I would go out and drink with friends, like girlfriends, mom's night out, all of that sort of. This is my reward. This is what independent, strong women do is they hang out with their friends and drink. And then when COVID hit and nobody was going out anymore, and I realized I'm still in my kitchen drinking by myself. So the pivotal sort of my turning point, there was no rock bottom. Like I know some people think, oh, somebody who has, alcohol use disorder or whatever has to hit rock bottom. And that was not the case for me. And I don't think that's generally always the case for most people either. You just sort of come to this realization like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was Christmas Eve 2020. And I was staying up, wrapping presents and, having wine, just refilling my glass. And when I woke up on that Christmas morning, just with a raging hangover, which I was used to not always feeling great in the mornings anyway, but it was just something about the combination of Christmas morning during COVID. It was like that first COVID Christmas, and you wanted it to be as special as it could be for your family.
Right.
And I felt horrible. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I cannot continue doing this. I don't want to continue doing this. Um, so I set the intention then to try dry January. I thought this could be a way for me to kind of sneak in that I'm trying to not drink as much because it's common for people to do dry January. So it wasn't as like a blaring, I'm
Right.
going to stop drinking.
Yes.
um, so, that's like a week in time between Christmas and New Year's, but I used that time to like prepare myself in different ways to embark on this journey. I really had no idea what would happen, but I just knew that I had to try it, that I could not continue letting myself down, feeling like I wasn't accomplishing anything anymore. Like my kids were growing up. I knew I had all this potential within me, but I was just numbing it down. And so that's what was my sort of point of here we go. Let's try
Yeah.
this.
Well, I mean, I think that you hit on so many things there because I do think that it's we get into these habits and we get into these routines and it's just part of our daily life. And we don't necessarily see that this isn't the path that we want to continue on, regardless of what it is that you're doing. Now, once you kind of recognize that you wanted that change and that you needed that change, what kind of internal dialogue did you have? Did you find yourself struggling with being resistant to it or fearful, or did you have some self-doubt? What kind of internal communication was going on.
Yeah, I was super nervous at first that I just wouldn't even be able to do it. Like, that I would not even be able to make it through one day because it was just my routine so much. And so a lot of fear surrounding it at first, especially kind of leading up to it because it was that anticipation too. And then so and then what if I can't do it? What does that say about me? So it's sort of like forward thinking. I wasn't actually hadn't even stopped yet, but I was just predicting all of these horrible things that might happen if I couldn't do it or struggled and harder than I thought I would. Um, so that was at first. And then once I did it, I made it through the first day and I was like, holy crap, I actually did one day. And then as each day ticked by, it I just started to get this confidence back. I mean, it took a while for the full confidence to come back, but it was just enough because I had 0 self-confidence in myself at this point in time. So just to even see that glimmer was so rewarding, and then that was able to change my self-talk to, "I can do this. I can do this," and encouraged me to just keep seeing what each new day brought. And there was cravings, there were highs and lows, but I just each day that I made through, it brought me so much joy and then freedom. By the time I was, 3 weeks in, felt like if I had known this is how I would have felt, if I, I would
Right.
have done this so long ago, but I didn't know. So
Yeah.
it all became just so encouraging and, positive and just freeing.
So it sounds like, I mean, you're saying that, just that sense of empowerment that
Mm,
you
yes.
had. Now, you mentioned that your self-confidence was very low at that
Mm,
point. Had it been, did you see a decline in your self-confidence? Do you note it happening over time, or do you feel that that was kind of your overall, that you had these limiting beliefs that were kind of surrounding you?
yeah, I think that it was such a gradual thing that I didn't really see it at the time, how I was doubting myself or felt unworthy of certain things. Who am I to have this? Who am I to have that? Um, I know in my younger days, that's not how I felt about myself. So it was this slow decline. Um, but I started to realize the anxiety. I just had so much baseline, basically, anxiety that I wasn't used to having. And I was almost just like second guessing myself all the time. And that is what was feeding the anxiety. I mean, along with the alcohol, but it was definitely, they were working together to make me this self doubting, unsure, couldn't make a decision. And all that's tough when, when you're raising kids too. You're like, you're the one who's supposed to be making all the decisions. And I mean, I would make decisions, but I never felt confident in what I was doing. Like, yes, this is the right thing to do right at this moment.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
So your self-talk really changed.
Yes, totally.
Definitely. What
Mm,
what kinds of things did you kind of see replace? Because I know that there's a lot of research out there that talks about when you try to remove these limiting beliefs and to
mhm.
figure out what are the narratives that you're telling yourself, and what are the self-doubt that you're telling yourself, and that's such an effective way to combat those is to instead come up with positive self-talk and positive affirmations that you tell yourself to kind of replace it, because you're going to catch yourself still doing that at times, but that happens less and less and less the more you substitute it. Did you find yourself doing things like that?
Yeah, and I learned a lot when I was doing my certification course, which I know you're also in
Yeah.
a life coach certification. Did Byron Katie's the
Okay.
work that really focused on taking that limiting belief, examining it, saying, is this 100% true? Do I absolutely know this is true? How does this make me feel if it were true? And then like turning it around. I didn't learn that like in middle school, high school, college,
Right.
any part when it would have really helped. So learning that as, a midlife woman and being like, oh, this is how you work through these doubts that come up about, yeah, who am I to start my own business? Who am I? And then I work through, I'm like, who am I not to? Like, I have expertise in an area now that I can share with others, and just seeing that value that I have to bring. But yeah, definitely having to work through the initial thoughts that can still, like you said, they still can pop up,
Right.
just out of habit and neural pathways. But
That
learning,
imposter syndrome is
oh yeah,
oh my gosh, that is so I know that I can 100% relate to that whole imposter syndrome, and I think that especially for women our age, that's just such a norm for us, and I don't think it was necessarily anything that, our parents intentionally it just wasn't something that we were encouraged in the same way that like now we encourage our daughters
yeah,
and TikTok encourages
yes,
our
yes.
with a
Thank
little
God
self
TikTok.
motivation. Hey, you know what? I will take the good of that because it is. I know. Yeah, I would assume seeing your daughter, and how she is, and looking at my daughter, and they're not having those same type
Mm-mm.
of limiting beliefs that we had. And I think some of that is culturally and societal effects of, a changing world. But also I would assume that there is some attribution to mothers like you and I who are recognizing these things and like, no, you can do it, why not you? It's okay. Why not you?
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely have seen, and I know that, that my children have seen changes in me too, which makes me feel so good. The positive changes, like they see how somebody can go from not one extreme to the next, but just continue to grow no matter what age you're at. So yeah, it's been nice for them
So
to get.
you said how you had the kind of like these limiting beliefs, but then also, what was the influence going into this? You mentioned wanting to provide that nice Christmas for your kids. And I know that I've seen in your social media that, to this idea of coming back and retaliating against this mom wine kind of culture.
Mm.
So what types of external factors kind of came into play in addition to those internal narratives? What kind of factors kind of came into play to lead you down this path?
I would say just knowing, just that deep down knowing that I was worth so much more than just basically numbing myself. And seeing, my kids thinking, what kind of an example am I setting for them?
Yes.
Like that mom has to have, mommy juice. I didn't call it mommy juice ever, I
Right.
don't think, but that's like what you'll see on wine
You see
glasses
on
and stuff.
yes.
Yeah. um, just that effect of, oh, she needs this because of us. And again, I never said that. I never verbalized that. But it seemed, I was afraid that that's what they were going to think, that if you have something in your life that's normal, like having kids, young kids, you have to have something to help you get through it or numb yourself to all of the emotions that go along with it. So I think I just knew I did not want what I was doing, to carry over into their lives as they were growing up. Um, and I think that was another huge, like, external factor, was them. Um, and then just in my health, I mean, I just woke up every day not feeling well. And so I knew that that wasn't how it was supposed to be, but I was so used to it that I was starting to feel like it was normal. And um, I, I knew it wasn't. And I was like, I've got to figure this out. I shouldn't feel this bad every day. I should have more energy. Um, and then even things like with my cholesterol level, I mean, it was so high, and they weren't sure if it was hereditary or whatever. And my liver enzymes were fine, but I didn't really want to tell the doctor. Well, it's probably because of how much I'm drinking. Like,
Sure.
that's when anybody fills out those forms. I mean, now I love filling it out. It's like, how much do you drink? I'm like, zero. But before, he'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, socially, check.
Yeah. Socially. It's always just socially.
So
It's
it's
always
just
just
social.
socially.
It's easy. So I knew that if I continued on this path too, that my health, which is important to me, was not gonna it was gonna just continue to decline. And so I don't want to be, again, thinking of my kids and as they grow up and being a grandmother, hopefully, I mean, I might not be, which is fine. but if, but if I am, I don't want to be this, drunk grandma too. Like
Right.
it's like I want to be present and active and accountable and reliable. So those were things. Yeah.
Now, this is only part of your journey, which I think is especially interesting because this is kind of really that I'm seeing my little model in my head. And that's what, this is kind of like the front leg of it, this interpersonal journey that you went on. But then, and that's why I also think yours is so incredible to start with, because there's such a clear distinction between that first part that was like the inside you and the changes that of self-discovery and self-empowerment that you went through, probably the interpersonal dialogue that you went through, but then you made an external transformation from there with your life too. So what kind of led you down that path? At what point did you have the realization that now you were capable of taking on something else?
Yeah, so I was so grateful, honestly, for how I felt once I removed alcohol completely out of my life, and I was like rediscovering creativity and all this in me that I had just had numbed out, and it was basically gone. So I started to think, what could I do to give this to other people, to be able to share this? And um, life coaching was not ever something that I originally thought I would ever do. I'm a pharmacist, so I'm used to just being in, in pharmacy, not being creative, just doing the job very
Right.
accurately. Um, but something just planted in my head. I don't know if I saw somebody who was doing it. I mean, there are definitely alcohol-free life coaches out there. So I started just thinking, I I could do that. I could be the person to walk somebody through this fight because it isn't easy peasy to do it, but it's totally doable. And I just feel like having somebody kind of with you to encourage you to who's been there, who can help you get through certain phases, especially at the beginning. It's like I can do that. Like that is something I would love to do. So I started looking into certification courses and found the one that I did called Euphoric AF. And once I got just in that group of women, because it was like 30 of us and it was a 10-month program and, Zooming once a week, practicing the skills on each other. I, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to build a community of women who can support each other through this, where you don't feel shame, you realize you're not alone. I don't think I realized how many people were living the existence I was until I kind of got into this group. It was already women had already, you know, were not drinking anymore, but we were just sharing, oh, this is what I would do. This and you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
Like I'm not the only one. So
exactly.
yeah, it's not just me at all. And so that encouragement, that support of all these women, we actually got to meet in person. We had a retreat in Palm Springs, California, and that was amazing just to spend a weekend together. And then we still had like 5 months left of the business portion of the program. So it just encouraged me so much. Like, I want to do this. I want to have a community that I build up where I can help women um, go through this process. And I'm still surprised that of all the things that I've done since then. I mean, I'm not when I was a pharmacist, I never thought I'd have a Facebook page, have an Instagram page. I mean, I had personal pages, but to start these business pages and to start my business, get my website, all of that, that takes confidence and clarity of mind. Never 5 years ago, if somebody had told me this is what I was going to be doing, I was like, no, there's no way.
That's a huge leap from
Yes.
pharmacist to alcohol-free life coach.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. What is, how did you mentioned about being surrounded by like-minded people and how
Mhm.
how did the people in your life react to this transformation? Because truly you came out of at least the first portion a different person. And then I'm certain out of this next portion, a different person. How did the people around you react?
And since it was still early COVID, because it was January 2021, that gave me this little cover that because I wasn't going out, because normally that's before, that's what I was doing, going out, drinking with friends. Um, so I really had the benefit of that kind of time to just figure it out for myself and not have these external pressures like, "Oh, just one drink, you've done so well so far, one drink's not." I didn't have that at first, and I know that that could be really hard, and that's also, why I wanna do the life coaching thing to help people through those instances. Um, but and I didn't tell very many people at first too, because I thought, "What if I can't do it? Here, I've made this huge announcement, and then I'm back to what I was doing." So, I did keep it under wraps, but then as I sort of debuted as this newly sober Emily, it's been encouraging to see, you know, friends of mine who still drink that, I don't, and I never want anybody to think that I'm judging them in any way whatsoever, because I know how much of a personal path it is, and I don't judge people who still drink. I just don't do it myself, and nobody has said anything to my face, about, "Oh, that's lame," or 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 "You must have really had a problem." Like the things that I hear that other people hear, I've never had been on the receiving end of those comments, but it can I can see how some people would get that feedback like, "Wow, you must have, woo, you must have been at rock bottom," or
Right.
whatever. Um, and then I've also found my circle has expanded, and that's what's been so amazing too is, I was in a just sort of a pretty comfortable small group. Um, and now, I started yoga, which I had never done before.
Mhm.
And I went right in and signed up for yoga teacher training
Oh,
because
wow.
yeah. So the studio that I would attend some, it's just like right 3 blocks down the street from me. Um, they were getting ready to start a new yoga teacher training program, and I was like, "Why not?" Let's do this. So that was right about the same time I was starting the certification program, and I thought they would go well together, and they did. They really
Yeah.
did. um, so yeah, like that is something I never would have done, to not only really kind of go to the studio regularly, but to do the yoga teacher training. So then meeting another group of people, again, not all sober, but there's several sober people at this yoga studio. So I was learning how to expose myself to just other ways to socialize and get to know people on such a deeper level too. I mean, as you know, with yoga, you don't do a lot of surface level.
No, no.
You go deep. So that was something I didn't realize how much I was missing in my life, was just deeper connections, with women, and especially, but just to be able to know you can go deep with these people and you're safe. And that has been life changing for me too, in my 50s. Like, who would have thought that I would
Yeah.
have
But would pre-2020 Emily have signed up for a yoga teacher training program or
ne-
something similar?
never, it wouldn't have even crossed my mind.
And
Because
it
it
seems
was,
like you did it without hesitation.
yeah, it was, and I feel like I've become more, it's like decisive, because before I would have sat and gone back and forth, and then the deadline would have passed, and I would have missed it. But I mean, it took me about a week to decide, which is pretty good for that amount of a
Right.
commitment.
Yeah.
um, and then yeah, so no, but no, before 2020 me, definitely not, because I was still just doubting myself, anxious, thought that's the last thing that I would want to do, is try to lead a group of people through a yoga class. No. So,
And
yeah.
you trust yourself now and you trust that you can do that.
Yeah.
How have you seen the relationships with your family evolve? with this entire process, especially being at the ages that your kids were?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm just baseline calm now with them. And um, instead of looking for what's going wrong, like, is something going to, kind of trying to predict the future about, oh, I need to make sure I got this and that, and just feel like I'm on the edge all the time. I can just sort of take them at just listening to them and not trying to predict what's going to happen next. Just letting them talk to me, tell me what's going on, not trying to solve their problems immediately. Um, that has been so nice, and I know that they've felt that because they can just come in and sit down and just tell me things, and not that before that they wouldn't, but I think before I was always trying to solve it. I was just trying to just do whatever I felt to be like a good mom. Um, and now I feel so much more calm with them and just present, like not scrolling on my phone or just being so distracted in my head anymore. The clarity is there for sure. So that has been not very nice, especially at their ages. I mean, 17 and 21, like they're almost adult. I mean, well, one of them is,
Yeah,
technically
right.
adult. So to have that relationship now, which I know will just get stronger. Um, and then with my family, I mean, gosh, so supportive. Nobody really realized, that I was a daily drinker. I mean, I don't think anybody really did, but for them to just be so proud of me, and especially me doing all of this with my bit and I'm in with my new business, and they're so supportive and promoting it too and showing it to their friends. Like my sister is showing it to her friends. My mom's not on social media, but she tells her friends. So I have been blessed to just have support, overall support and
That's
encouragement.
wonderful. That's
It is.
wonderful. And to see that growth and empowerment in yourself as just and to see the relationships that you're having with other people and with your children and with your family and just how those have all been so positively impacted because it's one of those you probably look at it like part of it is due to the lack of alcohol, possibly numbing and changing, making you not feel great. But then also now this inner sense of contentment that you seem to have with yourself, that also our happiness is also oftentimes when we're kind of aligned with a greater purpose. And a lot of times we don't see our purpose before that, before we come to that point, maybe not seeing our purpose as much,
Yeah.
especially when you're someone maybe like yourself who was in a career that was a successful career, but you probably didn't see pharmacy as being a purpose so much as, a career. So you seem to be very aligned in that regard. When you got this feedback from your family and from your friends and from your new friends, and how did you put that back into yourself, and how did that kind of did it snowball with you, and just kind of how did that guide you along?
Yeah, it just reaffirmed that I can do whatever I want to do. Like, if I decide I want to try something different, I will do that and I can do it. Like, it just gave me their confidence in me just fed back into my confidence in myself and their pride, especially like a mom, the moms who she's so proud of me. And so that just it's so encouraging and makes me just want to put that into other people. It's like I want other people, especially somebody who is feeling so unworthy that and midlife, that means the end or or whatever that
Right. Well,
doesn't mean.
that is the common narrative, right? And
Yeah.
that's the one that makes me crazy because I know I don't know about you, but I really got into probably my mid 40s and got to that point of thinking, okay, this is it. This is the end. Like I'm done, that's it. What else am I gonna do? I mean, we had successful careers, we have family, and what are we gonna do now? So that is a narrative that we're sold, and the reality is that's couldn't be farther from the truth.
No. Yeah, thank goodness.
I really think that women need support because there's so many factors out there. And, the whole idea of menopause and
Yeah.
trying to, I think that sometimes we forget because it's so understudied and
Hmm.
because it's so just people don't know and people don't understand and we weren't taught anything and we didn't have any expectations of what this was going to be. And so the whole physical changes and hormonal changes and tacking that on to the life changes that are going on with their kids going away. And no one takes into consideration all of those factors.
No, not at all. And if you look, I don't know if you ever looked at pictures of like your mom when she was your age.
Oh,
It,
yeah.
when I look at pictures, like it was, and not that it was anything she was doing, but it was just sort of like what the standard was that you just sort of wear the comfy clothes and you have just the look
Right.
is
Yeah,
so
it was
different.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, I know there's nothing more disturbing than when you see like the Golden Girls and you're
Yes,
like, oh my
their
God,
age.
they were my age.
I know. I love that. Every time I look at that, I'm like, "There's crazy. It's
I
crazy."
know. What people thought of what those societal images
Yeah.
of women at that point in time were is just so different that
Yeah.
and my first thought is always, well, yeah, but the life expectancy and like, well, no, it
But it
was.
is.
Like my grandma lived to be like 80s,
Right. Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
it was. They just stopped growing, I guess, stopped
Yeah.
evolving, stopped becoming something different at that point. So I definitely don't want to be that.
No. No.
No,
And you're
definitely
not. I can tell
definitely
you,
no.
you're not.
So, yeah. So when you look at this new version of you and the old version of you, what's the starkest contrast that you see?
I would say hopelessness to boundless hope and joy.
Wow. That's I mean, that is such an amazing feeling to have, to
Mhm.
look at the future with such I love that, like, boundless, like, it's there, like, it's there, there's nothing more that, that you can't do.
Right.
So, what for women who are currently listening who maybe are feeling stuck and kind of that hopelessness that because I mean I know I can 100% attest to feeling that sense of hopelessness in
Mhm.
in the past as well. And so we're not the anomaly, we're the norm here. Is that so for women who are listening who are feeling that kind of hopelessness and they don't know where to start, what would you suggest to them?
I would say to just look at your hopes and dreams as much as you can, as hard as it can be to start to go into that, but getting out of numbing feelings. I mean, there's many ways besides alcohol to numb feelings. I mean, that we all do, and I can still be guilty of a little online shopping. You
Oh yeah, just a bit.
know? So, but just breaking out of that, looking at if anything was possible, if I had a magic wand, what would I wish for? What would I create? And allowing your mind to go there and then just even a little bit of that every day can build up and give you that push you towards that vision of the future you. Um, And then just trusting yourself that you can do it. Baby steps, always are helpful, especially getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, the yoga teacher training did that for me, like just taking these steps that will push you out of that, even just a little bit. It doesn't have to be huge. Will help you get more and more comfortable with getting out of your comfort zone, and then expand. That just expands your world. So it's.
I do think that is, and that really ties into what we talked about earlier with those limiting beliefs that we have. I think
Mhm.
that is so key to be able to look at your future and just that suspension of disbelief. What if I can? Let's just take that I can't off the table right now. Maybe you can't, maybe, but you know what? Let's just go with for right now, if I could be anything, if I
Mhm.
could do anything, what would I be? What would I do? And I think that it's a scary question to ask
Yeah.
sometimes. because a lot of times I know with me, I don't know how it was with you, but with me, I know that I was I was scared of not just if it failed, but what if I succeeded? And was I ready for that? And was I ready for the person and the changes that could possibly come from that? Because a lot of times the relationships are changed. The relationships that you're comfortable with might be even damaged or might at least have to change to accommodate because you're not the same person that you were. And am I ready for those things? My days might be different. And I know you mentioned that with, well, this routine that you were in with, and I do think we all get comfortable with the routines that we're in. And are you happy? Well, happy-ish. I'm fine, but I don't know what's on the other side of that and
Yeah.
risking that idea of, but what if it's not as great as I think it's going to be? And that those kind of beliefs can get very hard to kind of get away from.
Yeah, totally. Changing the status quo and yeah, the you're exactly right. I mean, I could still probably say that I would, have those thoughts sometime too, like, "Oh gosh, am I really ready for what could be next?" Like, you
Right.
know, but it's exciting, which that shows me that it's good. But yeah, but our lives are so like not meant to be stagnant, and that's the secret sauce is like getting out of that mindset that this is the way it's going to be, and we're just going to continue this path until the end.
Well, it is. I mean, that's a really good point that you make there because we do. We look at the time of childhood as being something that we're growing and learning and changing, and our teenage years as we're growing and learning and changing, and college, and then your 20s. Everybody expect, and then you like, okay, now you're a full fledged adult,
Yeah.
and your 30s, 40s, and this is how it is. And then when you have children and you're responsible for their growth and change, it you just don't focus it on yourself. And so I think we get so out of the habit of allowing ourselves to continue to evolve. And that can be very hard to restart.
Yes, definitely. Because yeah, like that whole 20 years is
Yeah.
sort of focused on I'm building this human to be a human.
Right. Exactly. And you look at it, it's like I don't know who that person is anymore. And I'm certainly not her anymore. And
Mhm.
I think that we can all look back and see that, I just had my hair yesterday. I just went for the first time. This is the first time in oh gosh, at least 10, 12 years that I'm not blonde. And the
Oh,
every time I've had my highlights gone. And I've been varying degrees of having highlights. And all I wanted when I was a kid was all I wanted was to be blonde. And that was all I wanted. And it wasn't until my mid 30s that I started getting my hair highlighted and getting my hair highlighted. And it was yesterday that I had my hair appointment that I mean, I told her prior, so she wasn't
yeah.
super shocked. I didn't
Already had it all
I'm like,
prepped up.
and I actually told her the last couple of visits. I'm like, I'm thinking about just one more time having it dark and seeing how I like it. So, but it's interesting because I just keep glancing at myself when and it's like it looks like I'm like it's 1995 Jen. Look, she's back. And so it's weird to because you do. It's like you look at it's like I don't even know the person I've become over the last for me, it's 19 years, that I've been a mom and you just start to lose yourself. And so I think that knowing that you haven't lost yourself, you've paused her. Now you
Right.
have to kind of find her again. So
Yes.
what's something that you wish you had known that you would have made your journey a little bit even smoother?
Yeah, gosh, just knowing how good I would feel, um, because I just had forgotten how good I could feel, and so that was huge for me, being just sleeping well at night and waking up feeling good and having energy and And again, just like the clear head, because I would have just like that kind of fogginess, at least for the first few hours of the day. Um, so that is super motivating for me.
Right.
Um, and then knowing that also that the whole like the cravings, all of that goes away. At first you think, especially the first month, you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to spend the rest of my life at 5 o'clock always thinking, oh, it's time for wine? Oh, no, it's not. Like, am I always going to have this inner battle? And I mean, I don't anymore. And so I don't think I 100% believed that I would ever feel as free of it as I do. And so I think if I had known that, I mean, I
Right.
know there's no way to guarantee it to somebody else. But then it would have just taken away a lot of the fears that I had just to start to try to change. So,
So, if there are listeners out there who are hearing this and the story is really resonating with them and they might want to join you on this journey, how can they find you?
so I'm on socials. It's Living Free with Emily. And then my website is also livingfreewithemily.com. And on my website, I'm launching a group program. So, like a 12-week group program. It's called Freedom Uncorked. And it'll be a small group with weekly Zooms with me, like coaching, and then lots of information going out each day. Just it's a way to have that group feeling that I love so much and to support other women together. So that is launching in May 12th. So like my waiting list is on the website. And I also have a free quiz. What's your empowered alcohol free personality? So it's just like a fun way to kind of look at what your strengths are and what are some strategies you could use based on your personality type. So that's all on the website and on Instagram too. You can find all of those things.
That's wonderful. I just love seeing how happy you are and how it's just so clear that you have, and you can't see her because we're only doing audio, but I can see you're glowing and smiling
Thank
and
you.
just you clearly have come into a good place in yourself and you have definitely found your passion and your
Yes.
purpose. And it'll be a joy to get to watch you spread it to others.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so encouraging. I love that. And yeah, I do
Well,
feel like I've found my purpose.
Well, that's good. That's good. And that's where that true happiness comes from. So, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you want to find Emily, Living Free with Emily, and I really appreciate you not only kickstarting our episodes here, but actually kickstarting the whole idea in my mind.
Love that so much. That makes me so happy.
Thank you so much for listening today and always. I am always grateful to share this space with you, but especially grateful now as we are on our March Matrenaissance journey together. If you haven't already listened to the main Matrenaissance episode from last week, please go back and do so and come back for the rest of the month as I talk with women who I know in my everyday world, women who are just like me and just like you, who have lived their Matrenaissance and who are sharing what they have learned along the way. The Jen is Zens, where I try to provide you with prompts that will help you on your journey. Please visit the website, reframing-me.com. Check out my socials, Reframing Me everywhere, and even linked in the show notes. Please complete the survey because I am collecting data to test out my new theory, the Matrenaissance identity theory of communication. I am grateful for you taking me on this journey with you. And if you would like to come on this journey with me, please reach out to me at jen@reframing-me.com and share your story. Until next time, be well and communicate.